Finca Luna Nueva is home to a multiplicity of activities and different types of income on the farm. However, our primary activity on the farm is farming, principally through the production of turmeric and ginger. We exist as an organic and biodynamic farm, which today is considered an alternative model of farming, as opposed to conventional farming, which uses chemicals and agro-industrial products to stimulate growth of plants. This means that we have to figure out how to produce a good amount of product without using those chemicals. To do that, we rely on many techniques that come from ancient agricultural traditions. Here you can see I'm surrounded by trees, and this is a small opening in what is otherwise a forest. This type of agriculture is the most common form of agriculture in the tropical environment. It is commonly referred to as swidden or slash and burn agriculture. When it was practiced amongst the indigenous people, it was done in a very sustainable way, in which small areas of forest were cleared, and around the periphery of the intensive production were large fruit trees like avocados or zapotes or bananas, trees that produced tons of fruit that animals could come and eat, and also acted as natural barriers against these pests that would otherwise come in and eat some of the food crops that were perhaps more difficult to grow and more favored by humans. Today, in a contemporary setting, it's often said that this style of agriculture is unsustainable because it doesn't have the large yields that an industrial farm would have. However, recent studies show that those assumptions are actually quite mythical, and that if you were to take, for example, a plot of rainforest and measure the biological production of that area and compare it to, say, a banana plantation, it would not even be able to fit on the same graph. The production of a forest environment is many, many times the production of an industrial agriculture environment. The problem is we just need to figure out how we can create forests that are edible and useful for human consumption. So, what does that mean? That means here in the rainforest, maybe we're not going to focus our energy on growing things like tomatoes or even certain types of lettuces, crops that require a lot of manipulation of the environment to do well. Instead, we have such good things as the katuk leaf, which is a common green from Southeast Asia that's sweet and very good in salads. We have the chaya leaf, which is extremely high in vitamins and minerals and is very good stir-fried green. Below we have a Brazilian spinach, which is another green that is very good in stir-fried and part of the Brazilian diet. These plants all do very well in this environment and are very nutritious and produce tons of food, but we're not used to eating them, and this is a problem. Stuff like chaya is considered to be like eating brush, so if you go out in the woods and eat something like this, it's like you're a savage. Civilized people eat frozen chicken from the grocery store. Unfortunately, that's a cultural reality of many countries around the world. So, first of all, we have to learn how to eat the things that grow in our environment. And second of all, we have to figure out what things can grow well together. Here, for example, in these beds, you'll see the spinach growing underneath the chaya. These two plants are not in competition. One is protected by the shade of the other. It acts as a ground cover, and it has a more tender leaf when it grows in the shade. In this bed here, you'll see under the katuk, there is sweet basil and also wild cilantro. Here. This technique called intercropping is also very important in any agricultural practice because the diversity itself lends itself to the strength of the entirety of the system. One crop may be resistant to a certain pest and provide protection to another crop. Plants like hot peppers or onions or garlics are often used as barriers, natural barriers between nurseries or a species that's perhaps more delicate. A very important example of this type of technology is found in the Mesoamerican milpa system. This is the most important technological advance in agriculture in the history of the Americas. The intercropping of squash, which grew along the floor of the soil, the corn plant, which acted as stock and provided a huge amount of high protein food, high nutrition food for humans, and the beans, which grew up along the corn stalk, that fixed nitrogen, or gave food to the corn plant, created a system that was highly productive and also sustainable within itself, so that certain plants fulfilled certain tasks within that niche. Squash protected the soil from direct sunlight and rain and kept weeds away. The beans fixed nitrogen for the corn. The corn provides structure for the beans. None of them are in competition. This is simply the use of natural systems to the benefit of human beings. A very important concept called permaculture that came out of the 1970s in Australia is a more institutionalized effort at this indigenous agricultural system. The replication of natural systems to benefit humans creates a living forest, a diverse forest, that can fulfill our needs as well as provide food and shelter for other organisms on the planet. Here on the farm we try to replicate that as much as we possibly can. Our fields of turmeric and ginger have many species of nitrogen-fixing plants, of shade-protecting plants, of plants that we use for silage to give to the animals, and they're all grown in small patches that are surrounded by forest to facilitate the interaction between the forest's ecosystem and the farm agriculture production. We'd like to leave you with one idea: connectedness. Many of the species that we saw in the rainforest are found in the gardens and also here in the medicinal plants. It's important that we think about the connections between ourselves and the world around us, on our utter dependence on the natural systems for our food, our medicine, and our shelter, and the need for us to recognize our place within the greater workings of life. All of the spectacular species that we find here exist in one system, and we are a part of that system. It's very important that we recognize our role in this system and that we continue to base our future actions and our lifestyles back at home on the recognition of this one solo community.